Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just got off the airplane from Kentucky. Had such a great time this weekend in London, Kentucky. The people were so hungry. It's wonderful to see great joy about preaching on the coming of the Lord. That's the whole purpose of the End of Days Update, and the whole purpose of preaching on the coming of the Lord is great hope and great joy. So wonderful to see churches respond. We had a great time there in London. This weekend, if you're anywhere near Orlando, we'll be in Oviedo at East Coast Believers Church Sunday morning, and then we'll be in their school Monday night, and then be back in the church on Wednesday night. We'll have a great time. We've been there many times over the years, and the folks are so hungry there as well. So we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord. And man, I keep getting freaked out every single week because it's just in your face, over the top every single week. Things that are coming together and getting set up for the coming of the Lord. Specifically the nations that get ready for the Ezekiel 38 war. Because we talk about it every week. The rapture is signless. The second coming is tons of signs. So we're watching for the setup for what happens just after the rapture. And as we get into all this stuff, it's not about an escape theology. It's about seeing the finish line and running faster. We're watching nation after nation get ready for what the Bible said they would do just before God comes to the planet. So what an exciting time for the church. There's more verses written about what the earth would look like just before he returns, so that we would have a heads up, so that we would be in position doing what we're called to do, not on the periphery. We'd be right in the middle of the will of God. So let's let all the stuff that's happening push us and propel us to do more for the Lord right here before he comes, because we're about to meet him face to face. Let's pick up what's happened all around Israel. Wow, there's so much. So I'm going to try to slow down and get into it because it's so many complex, bizarre things. First of all, Iran attacks one of our bases in Syria, down on the Jordanian and Syrian border. Crazy. 5 drones. We call them kamikaze drones, but they had advanced GPS technology so they could fire them right where they wanted to fire them. We had a heads up, so we basically airlifted 200 of our servicemen out of that base in C-130. So I'm intrigued that we've got people out but didn't somehow figure out how to shoot down the drones. So I just don't get that. But you're watching Iran be so brazened to do that, which is crazy, to attack our base in Syria. So what happened right after that was yesterday, America did a cyber attack on Iranian gas places all over Iran. So people went to fill up their cars with gas and couldn't get any gas. Everybody thought it was Israel doing it. No, it was America doing it because Iran sent down 5 drones, kamikaze drones, trying to kill our troops. So now you've got Iran messing with America again. Now, they've done it in the past. They fired missiles at some of our bases, but now they're not just firing missiles. They're sending kamikaze drones. Remember how we talked about the artificial intelligence of the drones that were being over there, how America was even matching that. So it's turning into literally a last days warfare just before the tribulation. But there's many other things that happen. You got Iran sending anti-aircraft batteries into the border of Syria on the edge of Israel. Why? Because Israel has to keep going into Syria and taking out those missile depots that Iran keeps hauling missiles down into Syria to get to Hezbollah. So with them hauling those anti-aircraft missile batteries down there, because remember Russia said, we're not going to let you fly into Syria, or Israel's having to keep do that. In fact, yesterday they fired missiles into Syria at Hezbollah targets that Hezbollah was building up a main area right there on the border of Israel. So you've got the people wanting to kill Israel literally amassing on the border. So I love what Israel said. And when Israel says this, you better buckle up. They said they're making preparation for strikes on Iran's nuclear program. That's a pretty big deal. They even talked about the cost it would be. They said they're allotting $1.5 billion just to take out Iran's nuclear places. So with that, Iran announces that they added to their machines at Natanz highly enriched uranium. They're fueling more. So they've gone beyond the threshold. So I really keep thinking we're going to wake up and something crazy is going to have happened over there. So that's absolutely bizarre. So Israel's Prime Minister Bennett meets with Putin this last week. Just as he does that, you have Iran attacking America. Just as he does that, Putin promises all this mechanical air and sea stuff for Iran. I mean, Putin goes, we're going to give all this technology to Iran. So you got Russia propping up Iran, Iran trying to figure out how to annihilate Israel, and then Iran attacking us, and America responding. So it's just an interesting time completely. But there's more. I mean, there's much more happening with Israel and Iran. I mean, I'll go back to it here in a minute, but on the Temple Mount, you had the U.S. I love that the GOP put forth some decrees saying that you can't have a Palestinian consulate in Israel. And actually, Israel has to agree to have that in Jerusalem before they can do that. But it's so wild that even the Biden administration backed a Palestinian mentality to not let, really, basically, it's a UN mentality. The UN brought this forward to not let Israelis be in East Jerusalem. And not only that, Israel went ahead and okayed 3,400 settlements in the West Bank, right there in Judea and Samaria. So, man, all kinds of stuff's going to freak out about that. But I got to get through all this because you got earthquakes in California this last week. 9 earthquakes in California, some in Los Angeles. You had earthquakes in Taiwan. You had Russia and China doing the largest naval exercise in the Japan Sea. All these nations are doing what the Bible said they would do just before the coming of the Lord. So there's several more things happening, though, with Iran and Israel entrenching in, where Iran is basically blatantly saying, we're going to come after you. You had the Ayatollah Khomeini say, Arab countries don't need to make friends with Israel. Got kind of freaked out about that. So all the true colors are coming out just right now, just before the rapture of the church. Absolutely amazing. Many more things happening. You had the asteroids. You got asteroids this next week. You had one on the 15th of October, one on the 20th of October, one on the 25th. And those were the ones that are the size of the Eiffel Tower. Next month are the large ones. So you got earthquakes, you got asteroids, you got nations in position. So we always go back to the word. What's the word say? Number 1, Israel made a nation, Jerusalem won back. You got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. This one freaks me out. 2 weeks ago, you had the water in the Dead Sea where Sodom and Gomorrah is turned blood red. That's a big deal. And I said it on the end of today's update. The main thing is, I didn't really emphasize it enough. When did that happen? On the Day of Atonement. So it's just amazing the signs we have. You got foxes on the Temple Mount. You got fish in the Dead Sea. You got 172 different species of predatory birds. You have the fertility of the land of Israel. You have all these things pointing to the coming of the Lord. Just amazing. So with that, you have men will be lovers themselves. We have selfie sticks. So we're watching nation after nation fall into place. You had the Pope bring about the Abrahamic house of worship for next year for 2022. It's Islam and Christianity coming together. It's called the New World Order Church. Crazy. So that's next year. Many other things like that are coming to pass. You had Russia rebuild Baal's triumphal, it's called a triumphant arch there, like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, and it's for Baal worship, right there in Palmyra where the Tower of Babel was. And the Talmud said that's the last thing you'll see before the coming of the Messiah. So then you've got Yitzhak Raduri prophesying that Israel would be ruled by 2 Benjamins. That happened last year, Benjamin Netanyahu, Benjamin Gantz. So many, many things. You have the predatory birds we talked about. You've got just event after event. So you got animals in position. Really got Russia and Turkey. I didn't even talk about Turkey. You had Erdogan expose 12 different Mossad agents. He was going to kick 9 different ambassadors out. And as he began to do that, the Turkish lira dropped so far today, the largest drop ever. So he had to back down from that. Why were all these Mossad agents in Turkey? Because Hamas has all these headquarters all over Turkey. And Turkey's mentality is to annihilate Israel. So, man, you're seeing it all come to the forefront. So after all the signs, you have the signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. You had 4 in a row. NASA calls that a tetrad. Pretty amazing. When's the last time you had 4 blood red moons in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. And God raised up Columbus to sail the ocean blue. Found America be a safe harbor for the Jews. So you had the Bethlehem star last year. That's Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus. Amazing. The constellation was Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. First time in 2,000 years. So you've had the Revelation 12 sign on September 23rd in 2017. You had the Mercury do a flyby of the sun, went down directly over the Temple Mount at sundown. So you got the heavens preaching, signaling to us Jesus is about to come back. And you've got nation after nation right now, specifically the ones that the Bible said you would see try to attack Israel, showing their literal true colors right now. So, man, Israel having to fire into Syria at Hezbollah bases. Iran bringing anti-aircraft batteries down into Syria to try to keep Israel from blowing all their missiles up. So, man, it's literally right in front of our face. So what do? We help our local church, help our local pastor. You're more engaged before you get married than when you're engaged. You talk more, not less. Let your relationship with Jesus get radically strong. He redeemed you from the curse of the law. He died for you, raised from the dead. As He is, so are we in this world. Man, in this dispensation, you're Him. Act like Him. Demonstrate Him. Show forth Him. Speak for Him. Minister for Him, because He's coming so soon. There is an unction for every believer to lift up their voice and say, the Lord is coming back. Just as people would scoff at that, they're fulfilling prophecy, because the Bible said there'd be scoffers in the last days. That's all right. Let them laugh, let them scoff, but you be bold about saying Jesus is about to come back to the planet. And with all of the signs that we have, they're right in front of our eyes. We're so blessed. Colleen and I want to thank you so much for helping us. Thanks for supporting us, help praying for us, sending us, and we want to get the message out as much as we can, because Jesus is just about to come back. Have a blessed, awesome week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.